Hi everybody, welcome back to Mando Lessons. My name's Baron Collins Hill. In this week's lesson, we're going to have a little chat about being an intermediate mandolin player. You've got the basics under your fingers. What's next? You've built up a good technique, you know a couple chords, you maybe know a song or two. Now it comes time, what do you do next? We're going to talk about it. I think a big part of learning to play an instrument is learning to define your goals. That could be whether you just want to play for yourself or play in a band, what kind of music you want to play, what interests you when it comes to music, and what you are most excited about. It can be hard to define because there's so many different options. Do you want to play bluegrass? Do you want to play Irish? Do you want to play classical music? Do you want to play a little bit of everything? Do you want to be a professional and play gigs? Do you just want to play at home on your own? Do you want to get together in small groups and play with friends just for the fun of it? All of these are great questions to ask yourself, and they'll help guide you when it comes to learning new skills on the instrument. I often get the question, Baron, I've seen your beginner's series. What do I do next? Where's the intermediate series? How do I continue to gain skills on this instrument? And I think it's a tricky question because it really is dependent on what kind of music you want to play, how you want to play, all those sort of things. And it really requires some self-reflection, figuring out what it is that your goals are in order to be able to build yourself some next stepping stones into becoming a better player. I think the way that I approach this for myself is constantly looking back at what it is that's interesting me and has interested me in the past of playing a new instrument. So, I got into mandolin because I heard Nickel Creek and Chris Thile, and that really sort of guided my playing for a while. I wanted to play like that. I listened to a lot of Nickel Creek. I listened to a lot of bluegrass. I got into David Grisman and the Pizza Tapes, things like that, and would listen to a lot of that music and try to find a role just by playing along with recordings for myself as a mandolin player. And I think, a lot of listening is always a great thing to do. As my own taste changed over the years, I found myself more interested in the fiddle tune side of things, and I started really, not listening to that many mandolin players and just listening to a lot of traditional fiddle music from all over the world. Started out with kind of traditional New England and Maine music, 'cause that's where I'm from, and then I got into Quebecois music, French-Canadian tunes. I got into some old time through kind of the bluegrass side of things. Got into Irish music, started going to camps where people were playing Scandinavian music, and really just tried to suck up as much of that music as I could. I would find new recordings to listen to and really kind of dive in and try to play along in a way that sounded interesting to me and I felt fit the music. So in that way, knowing that I was really mostly interested in traditional fiddle music, that gave me a lot of stuff to practice. For myself, I learned a lot of tunes. I, through that, started to think about accompanying tunes in different ways, a little bit of music theory here and there so I could communicate with other musicians that knew a little bit of music theory, and started working on ornaments and double stops and melodic variation, a little bit of improvisation, things like that. But the only way that I knew what to practice was by having that guidance of listening to a lot of the music I was interested in, trying to figure out what it was that was happening in the music that I didn't have the skills for yet, and moving on from there. In general, because my website is based mostly around traditional fiddle music, what I always recommend people do is definitely watch through the beginner's series, even if you're not a beginner mandolin player, because there might be something in there, whether it's a technical skill or a kind of how you approach the instrument physically. There's probably something in there that could take a little bit of reworking. I find for myself, always going back and working on the building blocks is a really important thing. I've been doing it for 20 years, and every time I go back to the basics, I learn something new. And then from there, really kind of diving into fiddle tunes, as much as getting the techniques and fundamentals down is important, for me, actually just playing music is really the most important thing. And I don't ever want my lack of technical skill to get in the way of just having fun on the instrument and making music. By learning a couple tunes, you'll find things that are difficult for you, and then you can dive into things like the technique and fundamentals section of my website, You may say, oh, I hear Baron doing this triplet. How do I play that triplet? It's in the technique and fundamentals section. Or, oh, how do I work on melodic improvisation and things like that? Or how do I, find some nice chords to play behind this? That's all in the technique and fundamentals section of the website. But for me, I use fiddle tunes as a way to create music that I enjoy to play, and also to work on my own playing and say, okay, I'm having trouble with this particular section. How can I fill in that gap? Now, if fiddle tunes aren't your main interest, maybe you're more into bluegrass. I would say learn a lot of bluegrass songs. Listen to a lot of bluegrass recordings. You can ask on forums, like, what are some classic bluegrass recordings with mandolin? I personally like the Bluegrass Album Band. That stuff's real classic. It's got a bunch of great players on it, and I listened to a lot of that stuff when I was playing bluegrass. Listen to it, figure out what's going on. What keys are they playing in? What songs are they playing? What time signatures? Are they using chop chords? What of that information that you're hearing don't you know how to play? Maybe you're into classical music. I don't know anything about classical music, really, but there are resources out there. I know Marilyn Mayer has a great book, The Complete Mandolinist. Katarina Lichtenberg has a great online course, I believe through Peghead Nation. And really, all you got to do is figure out what it is you're interested in, and the internet is an amazing place that you can probably figure out how to approach and how to learn the skills that you hear and want to be able to do yourself. Another thing that's important is understanding your own learning style. If you're a self-driven person that really wants to listen to all this music and spend the time to find the music, figure out what's going on in it, troubleshoot your own playing, that's great. Maybe you're not that kind of person and you do better with kind of one-on-one instruction. I would say find a teacher. There's tons out there. Mando Lessons is set up kind of as a self-guided program where, you need to spend the time and go through the lessons, figure out what tunes you like the sound of, learn those ones. And I think that's a great way to go if that's your style. But if you need someone to meet up with every week to kind of hold you to learning new skills, someone that can identify what you're interested in, help you in that process, and then maybe suggest some listening, suggest some exercises, tunes, things like that, that's another important thing to sort of reckon with in your own style. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, it's one thing to learn the basics of the instrument, but once you get past that and you know how to hold the instrument, you know a couple tunes, you know a couple scales, in order to continue having fun on the instrument, and again, I believe fun is the most important thing, that's why we all do this, you shouldn't be forcing yourself to learn classical music under some sense of obligation if all you want to do is play bluegrass. Going back to finding out what it is that kind of lights your musical fire and then figuring out ways to get that information is important. And that really does require some troubleshooting, some learning on your own, seeking out recordings, different players, finding an instructor, whatever it may be. Mando Lessons may be the place for that, and it may not. There's tons of great resources out there with Peghead Nation, Artist Works, Mandolin Cafe, individual instructors, camps. There's nothing missing in the world of learning to play the mandolin these days. If you've got an interest, you can probably find it out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments, what are your goals? What are you struggling with? What do you like to listen to? Do you want to play for fun? Do you want to play professionally? Anything goes. Let me know down in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.